Okay, so for some of you who are gone because of other school activities, one of the things that we had said is a lot of these questions are going to be based off of, you could say, this project that we did. Don't disregard looking at your materials that we talked about in class, okay? So some things to think about. Are all bacteria bad? Of course, the answer is no. There are practical uses for bacteria. Can you possibly list some that we need bacteria for? Okay. One of them we could say is for digestion. Okay. So that's what helps the human body. Okay. And then what about as far as industry is concerned? Okay. So if we're talking about different types of industry, okay, we would say, like you said, dairy products. Okay. And then as far as digestion, okay, that must mean bacteria do something for us, which they do. Okay. So if bacteria do something for us, do we do something for bacteria? As far as this is found in the intestines of us, okay? And that would mean that what happens when one organism benefits from another? It's a type of relationship. Starts with an S. That's right. Say that again. Symbiotic relationship. So when it comes to digestion, what do we do for bacteria in the lumen or large intestine of us? What do we do for bacteria? Provide food and shelter. Okay? So we provide food and shelter. Okay? So that's what we do for bacteria. What are bacteria going to do for us? Well, you would think so, but it helps us reabsorb water and make vitamins, things like that. So we provide food and shelter. Then bacteria, okay, we'll say make vitamins for us. Make vitamins, okay, and reabsorb water, okay, because digestion is supposed to be a nice, gradual process that takes place. But it doesn't always happen that way, because if we have bacteria that's out of balance, it's called probiotics. You can take a bacterial supplement, and what that does is, if this is out of balance, what happens if you have too much water in your large intestine? It's happened to us all. Something that we don't like to talk about because it's diarrhea. That's right. Okay? And it happens. Okay? For when you young ladies, men and ladies, or ladies in general, as I'm trying to say, when you get out on your own, okay, there are certain things that are just going to happen. Okay? You could say life happens. Machines break down, vehicles break down, might lose a job, might have anything like that. The cattle market goes to tank, okay? Crops, it's not that they fail, but oh my gosh, you're putting so much money into fertilizer. Are we hoping on that back end that we get a good growth year? And for corn, I'm willing to bet that was probably no. You probably nowhere came anywhere nearly as close as what you typically do, and that's unfortunate. That's what we mean. Life happens, okay? Whether you're in farming or any other type of profession, okay? So yes, they make dairy products for us. Cottage cheese, anything like that. So if there are benefits to bacteria, okay, one of the things that I would suggest, and I think all young men and women are good about this, okay? And that is when you are getting ready to go to sleep, okay? Before you do that, what maybe should you do to some extent before you crawl in and have the Sandman visit you and you go off to dreaming? Okay, has something to do with your teeth. Okay, one of two things. Either, yes, brush your teeth, but even more importantly, well, maybe so, maybe so. Why would you want to floss? I agree. Because what happens when you go to sleep at night, okay, if you have food particles stuck in between your teeth,
there will be play practice tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Once again, there'll be play.
Okay, these particles that get stuck within your teeth, right, and then you go to see the dentist. Oh, geez, we got cavities. So a cavity just means an open area or open depression. And if you have a lot of them in your teeth, you have little tiny depressions inside of there that you would have to get addressed.
What's the problem with the little tiny pockets?
Okay, you have enamel on your teeth. Once it's gone, it's gone. There may be certain types of products like Pro Enamel that you may be able to take to might somewhat restore some of that enamel on your teeth, but for the most part, it's gone. You lose that protective function, and you got to keep in mind, if you have an infection in your mouth, it's like a straight march right into the brain, because you don't want to have a tooth get impacted, okay? For some of you, I think this is cool because I enjoy doing it, okay? You have on the farm, whether it's a sow or in case cattle like rubbing their necks, maybe they're scratching on barbed wire fence. The problem with that is, once you break that skin, what happens inside the necks of these cattle? They get an infection in there. So you have this, okay, even though this is lotion, you kind of have an abscess right here. So like you said, I wouldn't say a needle, but I think you would take a scalpel. Okay, don't cut it on the top. Gravity isn't going to help that way. So you lance it, you stick it in there, and whether you make an incision or just pull it straight back out, which is probably just as effective, then give it a little squeeze. Then you have your tapioca pudding that comes out of there.
Or hand lotion.
Okay, or hand lotion. Okay, so
It smells great too.
it can. But I always thought that was neat. Give it a little squeeze, and you think when you're popping your acne pimples, that's not a lot. When you look at some of these cattle, that's a lot. Okay, could be. Okay, so I'm sorry. I like your expression back there. Okay, so what happens is, okay, infections are just part of the daily process of living on the farm. Whether it's bovine or whether it's humans, the skin does a very good job of keeping microbes out until it gets cut, severed, broken into, any one of those aspects. So, some of the things that bacteria are negative for. What does it do to food then? So we'd say these are positive aspects. What are some negative aspects of bacteria? This isn't nothing of the color staining process. Okay? You could say it's not that it infects your food.
It gets on your food and then you get sick.
Well, no. After you have consumed a meal, okay, if you have leftovers, what should you do?
Put it in your fridge.
Put it in your fridge. That's right. Okay, because bacteria will, well, not only that, but breaks down foods. And when it does that, you could say spoilage. Okay, this is something we were talking about in the organic class. Okay, when we talk about whether it's butter or milk, okay, those are dairy products, both of them. you don't leave your butter sit out overnight or on the counter. You need to put that in the fridge, because whether it's milk or whether it's butter, we got butter we leave set out.
I leave my butter in the cupboard all the time.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
why we butter in the cupboard all the time.
only cars covered.
Put it.
Well,
If it's not being, like, if it's in the
Ma-
wrapper,
Ours
it's
have
in the fridge.
spreadable butter. So
Yeah.
okay, well, it might be different brands, but to me, so we'll use milk as an example. You don't leave your milk sit out overnight,
That's no. Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, I poured my milk this morning. She came out with some cottage.
Right, because what happens is bacteria is fermenting and breaking those dairy products down, okay? So they break down foods, which means when milk goes bad, we say this, it spoils, okay? We already established that if you don't floss your teeth, okay, causes this, okay? And then what happens if you have bronchitis? That means you have an infection where? Yeah, mucus in your lungs, okay? So can cause illness. Okay? So those are negative aspects of bacteria, okay? Spoils foods, causes cavities, then also can cause different types of illnesses, okay? All that is true, all right? So then, as we proceed and or move forward, how many different, not types of bacteria, but shapes? There's three, okay? We have some that look like this, okay? And we heard this. No, we just want you to know there's three types of shapes of bacteria. Not types, three different types of shapes of bacteria, okay? Rods, spherical and spiral. Spiral gyro, I think it's just spiral, okay? It's a sphere, so circle, spherical, means the same thing, okay? All right, so what's an example of a provirus? Okay, so if we wrote provirus up here, okay, the best examples, you're not wrong with pink eye, you're not. But what people are probably more relatable or can relate this to is this, cold and flu. Okay, no. Okay, so if that's a provirus, is this a pandemic, an epidemic, or an endemic? It's an endemic, means it's going to show up and it's going to go away at the end of the season, you could say. I don't know, have we tipped as part, are we past the corner of the flu season? I don't think so. I don't know. Okay, right? So one of the things we, and I talked about this with the first hour class, okay? Not that we're superstitious, but for anyone who knows anything about Minnesota Vikings history, last time they're in the NFC Championship game, I think it was against Philadelphia, but what do the commentators do? Okay, here comes Gary Anderson to kick a game-winning field goal. He has not missed one all season long. But he misses it. Okay? So what does that say about us when we say, I don't think the flu season's got here, or we're past the flu season? That might be a bad idea. So what can you do to wash your hands? Drink a lot of water. Okay, hand sanitizer, wash your hands. Okay, in something I know, well, I shouldn't say no, you people don't do. I'm just speculating. At night, get a full lengthy what?
Sleep.
Now be honest. How many of you are getting 8 hours of sleep?
I get about
I'm I am dead serious.
Okay, well good, good. Okay, then lastly, some people like myself choose to get this every year, a vaccine. It's a flu shot, okay? So one of the things you got to think about, even from a vaccine from 5 years ago, could possibly still be effective for different types of strains of the flu virus that may come out. MMR is a vaccine, flu vaccine, the COVID vaccine. Some people choose to get them, okay? And yes, I get the flu shot every year. Vaccines will help with that, okay? So what is, provirus. So if it's a provirus, is that the lytic cycle or lysogenic? Lytic cycle. Yep. These go through this. And I would be led to believe, paraphrasing, what a virus does in the lytic cycle. Okay? Here is a virus. So what does this virus do? Infects this one, this cell, this cell, this cell. What are these cells going to do now? They're going to make more viruses. And then they spread. Okay? Then it moves on to the next and then the next. And every time it does that, it kills off that host cell. Okay? But the thing about that is, from the time of exposure until the time you feel, God, I don't feel very well. Is that the same day, the following day, maybe 2 days, 3 days? That's not part of the exam, but
I'd say more. 3 days.
it could be 2 to 3 days. Okay? You are not going to feel the symptoms right away. It's going to take a little bit of time. So what two differences do we see here? What's different from a provirus or a different type of cycle? Retrovirus. Okay? So a retrovirus. Okay? So what's an example? AIDS is not a virus. Okay? I'm just going to put pox there. Could be smallpox, chicken pox. And then these turn into, like you said, shingles. Because these go through a different cycle. Lysogenic cycle. Okay?
Because they come back later.
Right. In other words, I don't think about it that much. Okay? Yes, I've had the chicken pox. Okay? Was fine. Okay? But that can lay in wait and then come back into this. Okay? Because of the life cycle of that virus, it can show up years later and then infect again. No. Good question. I don't know. I'm not going to make anything up. Okay? So the question was, what's the difference between the monkeypox and chickenpox? I said, honestly, I don't know. Okay? So now as we move forward, any questions about, and we'll see who's kind of paying attention with this, is the spread of, let's say, this plague according to this video. Some of these you might have to think about, okay? And what we mean by this, how are these intertwined?
Because the fleas get on the rats,
The fleas get on the rats.
and then the fleas jump on the people.
The rats transport the rats transport the fleas.
Okay? What's this? Yersinia pestis. What about it?
Fleas carry it.
True, but that doesn't answer the question, though. No.
What is it? Can you give us?
You know it, you just don't know you know it.
Can you give us a hint?
It's the disease. That's what they are. It's not
What have we been talking about this whole chapter?
bacteria.
Yeah. this is the bacteria that's in the fleas, and the fleas then are on the rats. Okay? So just because you see rats, does that mean that it's going to have fleas?
No.
No. And even if you see a rat that has fleas, does it have this bacterium in it? No, not necessarily. Okay? Kind of a trick question there. So what is it that was probably the spread of the plague? I don't expect you to know this.
The people.
Okay? This is what we're looking for. Okay? And then, okay, when it came to, let's say, the spread of this bacterium, what was the problem with being in a bigger city? If there's more people,
More places to hide rats, more trash.
true,
Easier for fleas to spread to person to person.
which is going to lead to what?
Yeah.
Right, because when we look at it here, okay, in the course of maybe 2 years, a population of 500, it's not that you want to be, and the scary thing about that would be is, oh my gosh, I've got these symptoms, okay, I've got these buboes that are showing up in my neck, in my groin area, okay. It's possible that after that infection, they could succumb to this, which means perish by the end of the day. How scary would that be to see someone go through that? And then, of course, we're talking 600 years ago. Okay? So with that, not quite 600, but the idea behind that, the larger the population, the larger the death rate. And like one of the professors said, man, if you have a population of 100,000, what? Well, I think you probably would. What are you going to do? How do you even take care of 10,000 who have just perished? Okay. Okay. So then, if larger populations were more susceptible to this, how did it? It wasn't people. How did it get there to begin with?
Trade routes.
Say that again. The trade. That's right. If you have a larger population, you're going to have more ships that come in. The more ships that you have come in, it's probably going to have more rats, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but the chances of having the fleas and the bacterium on that are certainly going to be higher. Okay? That's kind of a little bit of a tricky question. Larger areas had larger death rates and probably a larger, faster spread because of the trade routes. Okay? And then another tricky question, I think. If you know the geography, the Rhine or the Rhone rivers, okay? Where do you put 5 to 10,000 people? You don't have time to dig graves for them. It's you what do? It's you dump them in the Rhine River. Okay? So, and for those individuals that were maybe on their deathbed, in their minds, if they don't have this, this is worse than dying.
Oh, not getting the deal from the priest.
Well, it's something more specific than the deal from the priest. Say that again?
The final rites.
Yeah, last rites. That in their minds was worse than dying. Okay? So then there were many different types of ordinances. I think they said 33. Okay? Don't ring the church bell anymore. Okay? That was one. You can give last rites from one person to another. But probably the most important one, ordinance was what? don't bring dead people in the city. And once they have perished, don't let them out of the city. Go ahead and one person, one grave site. Okay? That's probably one of the best things that they probably could have figured out. And again, you got to think about this. This is 650 years ago. And are we more advanced now? In certain cases, some you'd like to think so, but we still do dumb things as a society. Okay?
Yeah, when we vote certain people in the presidency.
Okay. So I mean, there's a lot of things that we could, but we're almost out of time. Any questions on this handout? Because we've gone over all the questions. Any one of these, like where it starts with saying what takes place just prior to the plague in 1347. Like, you know, the crops failed. There's a climactic shift. And then there's one more. The temperatures plummet. Okay, that was the first question going all the way through. Okay, what was post-plague years in the 1700s?
The Renaissance.
The Renaissance.
No, it's really
That's right.
good.
Okay. Well, I suppose you could say it's really good. There's certain things that oddly have happened in the ancient world that you really got to. Not you scratch your head, and why didn't they do this? It's just they never correlated making work easier for themselves. Like for instance, the steam engine, very good invention. That was probably possibly invented 500 years before the acceptable, even longer. But why have a machine that makes work easier if you have slave labor? And that's a viable question, okay? Probably don't want to spend the money, okay? So when we look at some of the advancements, these aren't old civilizations that just didn't know how to, let's say, be an advanced civilization. Just the thinking was just different. I guarantee you that
We wouldn't have thought of that back then.
that your parents get frustrated with you because you're on your cell phones. My parents probably would get frustrated with me if I had a Walkman and was listening to, let's say, different types of cassette tapes. No, Fox News wasn't around at that time. Oddly enough, this has gone all the way to this. Well, you don't need to be listening to this. So, exam tomorrow. And the tough part about this is every year that we've ordered bacteria, it would be here within a week. I got a message from Miss Tiffany. February 8th is the earliest arrival date. I have no idea. It might mean that we're going to move on to the plants, which is okay because we still do slides, microscope slides with plants, and it'll give you a little extra practice on working with a microscope. So don't get bent out of shape about this, okay? We are going to do this activity. It's just that it's not going to be when you thought. Okay, we'll catch up to you next time.